Okay, dads, welcome back. Picture this. Your kid is sprinting around in the living room wearing a Tyreek Hill jersey yelling, "I'm the fastest man alive." You want to cheer him on, but then you remember the headlines. Suddenly you're wondering, do I say something or should I just let him enjoy being a fan?
Do you burst the bubble? Did you break the innocence? And if you do, you have to explain what those actions are, why they may be right or wrong, or why they're considered right or wrong.
But it's not just the athletes, it's YouTubers, it's rappers, it's even Disney characters. So today we're going to talk about all of that. We're going to talk about when you should address it, what you need to do about it, or you just should let them enjoy being a kid. So stick around. All right, guys, welcome back to episode 6. Today we're talking about behind the jersey and what dads need to know about when their kids choose their role models or heroes. So, Jay, we know that who our kids idolize right now, it can really have an impact on how they see the future and things that they believe are their truths.
Or even how they should act or be, or the goals they want in life.
But when does that flashy, admirable lifestyle in their eyes, when us as dads need to step in and say, hey, let me just level set some things here. There's some things that this guy may not be your appropriate role model.
Well, I think as soon as you realize maybe an attitude, a behavior, or something like that, it also depends on the guy. A star athlete gets arrested, belligerent, fighting cops, obviously.
And I feel like we're picking on one individual, but
it could be anybody.
There's a lot
could
of
be
them.
I said sports.
There's
I
a
didn't
lot
say
of
a
them.
specific one.
There's a
But
lot.
Great athlete, could be a great guy. But what my kid sees is this. I'm lucky that my older kids and my youngest son, they all move on pretty quickly between heroes. So like my youngest son, originally it was Tyreek Hill, and then he moved on, and now he's Lamar Jackson.
So just like their attention spans,
everything's
their
Lamar
heroes
Jackson.
fade.
And I've got
Very
no problems with Lamar Jackson. So I like him, his work ethic and what he does. He's talented.
We like Lamar in my house as well.
Yeah,
he's a good one.
Yeah.
So we're going to move into Q1. We've set the stage here. We're going to talk about the innocent choice versus the adult reality and that difficult decision of when do we bring that reality versus just letting them be innocent kids. So, we've talked about a few of them, but the list of common athletes, role models, I mean, we talk Tyreek Hill, we talk Antonio Brown, YouTubers, I mean, Jake Paul, Blippi. I don't know if you guys have checked Blippi's background. It's a thing, man. And the honest truth is at least for my youngest, who's now 9, Blippi was on repeat for a good 3 years of our life, right? But at that
I'm glad I missed Blippi.
You did, but as a 3-year-old, no, I mean that's
they wouldn't pick up on that.
They're not going to pick up on that. They're not going to pick on the IG having a good time pictures.
Yeah,
are out there.
That's true, but
I hope not.
Like go down the rabbit hole of Marvel and Tony Stark.
Yeah.
And Iron Man. He's awesome, and he's such a nice guy outside, and he always, helps out everyone, and especially kids. But if you were to actually read the comic books, he was a severe alcoholic and womanizer. So,
yeah, and as a kid, you don't know what that stuff is.
I didn't know. I read the comic books growing up.
Right.
I didn't know what that was. I still loved him, and I was just like,
I was a huge Wolverine comic book fan.
I was as well. I have a son named Logan.
You can't beat that. I mean, that's as legit as it gets. But he too was a drunk.
He was a drinker. As it turns out, it didn't ever affect him though, because of his metabolism.
He burned right through
it. But he also said some choice words for the comic books back in the day.
So, what do you think our kids or everybody's kids are drawn to when they determine like this is the person that I want to
I think with my daughter, originally it was music. It was, Pink, Taylor Swift, all of that. My oldest son, I think he kind of followed along with wrestling for me a little bit, and then he went on his own. But my youngest son is all about Madden, is all about NFL, and it's the draft and seeing that everybody wearing chains and crazy suits, and it's all money and everything's just money, flash, and
Flash, lights,
lights.
flash, lights.
But I think that's what drives it now. And I think they look down at that YouTube and see how many followers somebody has.
That's the difference today too. Is there's an algorithm pushing these things,
Yes.
right? Whether it's by design or just happenstance, it's pushing. Targeted, it's pushing these things on. Whatever goes viral seems to be what's pushing it. So there's a manipulation factor that we didn't have.
No.
But maybe we did. I mean, we didn't have as many outlets, but we had the TV.
Yeah.
And we had Sports Illustrated, and whatever they pushed is
whatever
what
they were
we
pushing is who we were going for.
right? I mean, like MJ, you can't convince me that he's not the GOAT, but
Yes.
outside of the court, not a good lifestyle.
No.
I mean, and I don't want to
Not
come off
initially.
as judgy
Yeah.
because we all go through things.
I'm flawed.
We're all flawed, and we've all done these things. But these guys just live more in a spotlight where they're scrutinized more than anybody, and that's kind of where the things is like, well, this may come out too, that the kid's going to be like, Dad, what is this?
I mean, at the same time, you're looking at them they are looking at them for like all the flash, the money, the cars, the houses. You also got to remind them that they are human. They are people. And people don't always make the right choice.
So we talked about attributes, the talent, the fame, the bling bling, the humor.
I don't think we use bling bling anymore.
Is that out?
I think it's out.
In our arena, we still use the bling bling.
Okay.
The kids these days,
That's true.
they just signed off, but we're going to use that. The winning at all costs seems to be something that the kids really follow.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because that's in this culture, that's all that really gets shown. You don't really get to see the losses.
No.
It's the me culture. It's
all about them.
Selfie culture where the
Yes.
camera's always on you.
Well, my son's very competitive, and I don't know if that's from his mother and me being
It's bloodline.
also very competitive. But everything he watches and everything he does is something competitive. So that could be who he's drawn to.
And that's where it really comes into, you really hope that they pick up on the good that these people are bringing out, and not the way that if somebody is really competitive but they lose really bad.
Yeah.
Right? Like if they are a terrible loser.
Exactly. Or, conversely, if they bounce back or they, take it in stride and be like, yep, that one's on me.
Being a good teammate.
I remember seeing Peyton Manning, I don't know how many times, and Phillip Rivers, another great one, who did not curse on the field. He said dadgummit a lot. But good guy, family man, has 10 kids.
That's a lot to keep up.
My son just did a report on him for Alabama. So
I should get him on the podcast.
if you're listening, Phillip,
Subscribe. Like.
my son's the one that hits you up to get all the information. And he responded. Actually, my son wrote him a letter, and then my wife sent the school that he teaches at an email, and he responded, gave us answers to all the questions, and he was able, my son dressed up as Phillip Rivers for school.
That's awesome.
It was great.
Way to go, Phillip. That's the true role model. But speaking of true role models, what are the realities that our kids aren't seeing? It's pretty, I want to say it's pretty obvious, but with the YouTube culture and Instagram, they actually have more exposure to learn things and develop their own opinions at a much earlier age than we did.
We blindly followed people.
Our innocence.
Obviously not in.
The benefit that we had is our innocence lasted longer.
Way longer.
Which is great.
But that also means we need to explain things to them a lot younger.
which is where that's going to be our
That's where
struggle
we're at.
because we feel like we look at it through our eyes. It's like, hey, man, I've got till they're 16
I don't need to talk to them
to
about
sit
this
down
yet.
and say these things. But the reality is they're probably learning about these things
Like, I'm not
7 and 8.
Yeah. I don't want to have to explain to them. I'm like, 9 baby mamas is not a good thing.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example. Sitting with both my kids, who are all under the age of 10, and there was a controversial thing that came up, and I said, hey, guys, come here. I want to talk to you about this. Do you know what this is? And it was something that I would not think that they would even register. It wouldn't register to me until probably at least preteen, teen arena. They're like, oh, yeah, Dad, we know what that is. I was like, well, explain it to me. They're like, it's this. I'm like, well, that's deadly accurate. I'm like, well, do you know why that's wrong and why you shouldn't do that? And they're like, oh, yeah, Dad, we do. It's because this. And luckily they were right.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, that's a pretty deep lesson that they had picked up. And thankfully
young
that
age.
they had determined this is the path that they were going to go. But now you also understand why a lot of kids in that same scenario go a completely different route. Because it's your choice, your decision, your whatever. You do whatever you want to do. And it just completely takes out the raising
But
part
but it's the surprise of you completely ignorant thinking, but there's no way my kid knows about that.
And it hurt my heart. That was a
Yeah.
level of innocence there that was
Gone.
lost because of something they watched on YouTube. And we can't monitor it.
No.
So we're kind of going down a
Well,
rabbit
we
hole.
could
But
monitor it,
I mean, that's you could.
But then it's
But then they're going to do something in spite.
yes. My youngest son likes to do spite things.
Yeah. So you get it back a full 200%.
Yeah.
Whatever you've restricted. But they don't see the. I want to say, like I'm having a different opinion. I want to say like they don't see the controversies and the poor decisions or the. But I literally had my 9-year-old be like, hey, Dad, why does Tyreek Hill have 9 kids from 3 different. Like he asked me that. And I'm like, well, first off.
Why do you know about it?
Do you know where babies come from and
yeah, I
stuff
know.
like that?
Do you know block 1 of this?
Yeah, and I'm quite frankly scared to ask that.
I don't. Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, I mean, and I know dads out there, you're probably thinking the same thing, and you were having these conversations too. So we're airing it all out here. We're not experts. We're just putting
and if
it out
he's
there.
making the time to be with every one of those and being a great father, good on him. I'll say that as a disclaimer. But
I'll just stack it against you.
yes,
First off,
I'm not trying to just throw people under the bus, but reality is reality. 9 from separate ones, there's no way they get along.
We're not here to judge, but the fact that our kids are asking these questions about your lifestyle habits is where we're coming together. So I know all you dads out there are kind of struggling with these same things.
But it's not just him. It's a lot of it.
It's a lot of these things. Other things, or maybe it's when one of their heroes goes through like a just consuming life event.
Yeah.
Like Tom Brady and his divorce.
Yeah.
Like that got very public quick
It
and
did.
covered in all angles. Whole generations of kids that didn't even know what one divorce was that
Yeah.
learned about divorce through Tom Brady. It's not his fault. It's the figure that he is. It's the way that media is these
in
days.
every facet of his life. And again, that goes back to having to teach down to they are still human beings.
Yes.
They still go through things.
Yes. But you would never know that from the media, especially at the level
Well,
of
they don't. They also don't grasp the cause and effect. The cause, like the poor decision making, and the results of that poor decision.
So I've got one for you. Taking a little bit of a shift from the celebrity thing and more into the cartoon characters, but Disney movies, really, but in a lot of different arenas. There's other companies that do the same thing.
Yes.
I feel like there's an agenda out there that are pushing political issues, social issues, things that our kids should be protected from.
Yeah, they shouldn't be involved in.
And they're doing it in an innocent manner that our kids are like they're removing the ability for a parent to parent.
Right.
And however you want to parent, that's up to you because you're the parent and that's whatever you want to inject. I'll leave that to you. I'm not going to sit here and tell you right or wrong. That's not my job. There's right ways to parent, obviously, and there's wrong ways to do it, but I don't need a globo corporate industry
Yeah.
pushing agendas on my kids in manipulated ways in animation. You know?
It's very odd that that's a choice. That's a deliberate choice that someone makes. Even like a remake of something that's already done. They alter it and change it, and it's like, what was the reasonality? Oh, why? And I'm not just talking about people in it, just some of the words, some of the directions they push things. There's no need for it.
None.
And the percentage of people that would actually get to is so small. I get it, representation. Somebody that watched something wants to feel like they identify with it. But 98% of the people aren't that.
They're not. I don't need my 7 and 8-year-old, 6-year-old, 5-year-old, whenever the movie came out, having a movie about a girl's period.
Yeah.
I don't need that.
I don't want to, because I don't want to explain that.
Yeah.
Especially
there's
not
going to
at
be a
that age.
conversation at the end of the day. I mean,
I know exactly what movie you're talking about.
everybody does.
But
Everybody.
there was multiple different ones we were speaking of in that
There's
rant, but that one, I
plenty of
did
arenas.
think that was odd.
And that's actually one of the lesser.
That is.
At least that's a life thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's gonna.
Eventually,
I could understand some justification, but I don't need that. And I know people are gonna say, well, just don't let your kids watch that. Look, hey,
come on.
anytime a Disney movie is promoted, your kids is intrigued.
because they know all about it.
Yeah.
It's shoved down their throats in ads. It's everywhere.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about it, but should we shield the negative influences from our kids? Do we step in at this point? Because we're quickly going down the arena of they're going to figure stuff out on their own.
Yes.
Is it better
Well-
to have parental guidance down that path?
They have access to ask questions from the internet or AI, anybody, and get answers immediately that we didn't. And I think if we don't at least partially probe to find out where they are and what their understanding is of a certain subject, and then I think then you take the action of whether you need to pop the innocence bubble or you just play it off and just move it to something else. And I really think it's a case-by-case basis, and you have to really take into account, how you felt when your hero was crushed and it wasn't the perfect person in the world that was invulnerable.
Yeah.
So you have to take that seriously, but at the same time, I don't want a constant DUI guy to be my kid's hero, because then I just go, all right, brother.
It's okay to do that. You know, it's
They're greenlighting that behavior.
yeah. There's certain things. So one of the questions that we've gotten is, would you let a kid wear a jersey of somebody with a checkered past? I think if it's like repetitive history,
Well-
or it depends on the act too. Like if somebody's going to viciously beat their spouse
Yeah. Or child.
or child, I'm probably going to be like, we're not going to wear that jersey
You're
out.
not wearing that one.
More so because it's not that people don't make mistakes. It's
Right.
when my child is wearing that jersey, people are going to ask them about that.
Yes.
And I'm like, I don't need that attention.
And other
on,
kids will,
on you. Yeah. Yeah.
especially when they go around older kids.
Yeah. And then their heroes are kind of they're
That's
crushed in that. It is a tough line. But we'll move on to Q2. But what I want to kind of transition here is, what about me and you, Jay? Like when we grew up, what if our childhood heroes aren't who we thought they were, which we did find out as we became adults, who they actually are. And does that change how we parent now? Because it's the whole concept of you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And then you grow up and then you know what you didn't know. And then now you kind of go in this kind of time warp of, were they always this way and I just didn't know? And does it change my opinion? Yes, right.
Well, I mean, usually if a father is involved in the family and there's a child or a boy, especially a boy, I'll say sometimes it's a girl, but I'll say my dad was my hero. I get a lot of my personality from my father and my tendencies, and I think because I watched him and mimicked him. But throughout my lifetime growing up, kind of like my son, I started watching football, and I loved Lawrence Taylor.
LT.
Love him. He's the best defensive player of all time. And I even named my daughter Taylor.
Can't beat that. Just,
Well, then you find out some of his past, and he's corrected his ways since then. But like at one point in time, he was wild. But I didn't know that as a kid. I didn't even know it when I named my daughter. So
what's the movie Little Giants when they bring him on to have the talk? And he's like, that brings, or no, it's the Water Boy.
the Water Boy.
Is that
yes.
brings to our next point? Drugs are bad.
Yeah.
Or crack is bad.
Yeah, exactly. And then I went through my military career, and like I think at every stage I thought somebody was a hero, and then I got to know them, or I thought a certain rank was untouchable. And then I'd be like, you'd see somebody that was less than stellar, and you'd be like, oh, that's tarnished. Never mind. But
it's a tough life to sit. So we're already in Q2, so we'll just keep going. But it's this theory that I liked them better when I didn't know what they were doing.
well, I mean,
It's like, why did the veil have to be lifted? And now
well, Tinkerbell, sometimes you have to grow up. Can't be a
I'm
kid.
a real boy.
Yeah, okay, Pinocchio.
I really enjoyed the Mark McGuire, Barry Bonds home run race.
I did too.
And I'm not going to sit there and say that I was naive even at that point to know that they had some special juice behind it.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't, but I don't think at that time that I think people kind of knew stuff was going on, but they just let it. That was one of the greatest
Yeah, they just let it ride.
competitions in sports history.
Just let it ride.
And then the veil's lifted, and you're like, "Oh, these guys did all that," and you're like, "Well, that sucks." But do I care?
No, I don't care.
It was
Do you
great. It's a race from history. But
Exactly.
it was great. I mean, I had so many sports heroes that I just really enjoyed seeing them play, and I didn't even understand any of their off-field issues. And if you would have told me about it, I didn't know what that meant. So there's no reason even telling me about it,
Yeah.
because I would have no concept of what that actually looked like. I wouldn't know what an alcoholic meant.
Yeah. A gambling addict.
A gambling addict. I
wouldn't have
mean,
known it, yeah.
even like with Kobe when he went through his thing. Like I was
Yeah.
old enough to know then, but as a
Yeah.
kid,
I wouldn't have known.
I wouldn't have known. And that's I don't know where that
Well,
all
you didn't
netted
have
out.
you didn't have a tablet that you could look that
Yeah,
up.
and there wasn't a billion pieces of misinformation out there
Yeah, that's
guiding you
true.
down one path. I mean, the other thing too is beyond just celebrities and heroes and kind of people, I would put them in this kind of like other realm of they're just out there, right?
Yeah.
Like this people you're never going to meet. They're not family. They're just celebrities and cartoons and all that. But even close to home, right?
That's
like
true.
family members, right? Like everybody's always got that like fun uncle at the early parties that all the kids are drawn to. And then as you grew up, you're like, well, there's a reason that he was always funny and goofy. He was doing
Yeah.
things that he shouldn't have
been.
done.
Yeah.
Right. And it's that veil that's lifted when you're like, gosh, and then you go in this path of like, were they always like that? And I just didn't know any better. But where it really comes into play is there's a feeling when it's innocent.
Right.
That's joy and it's gratefulness. And it's just, if it makes them happy, where do you draw?
Where do you draw like? Well, I think you can use it as a lesson too. You can explain the truth. Like this is the problem and this is why this is this way. And then follow it with not everybody's like this. Not everybody's nice. Not everybody's funny. Just you have to it's a choose your own adventure decision case by case.
And
because now my son, my older kids are like, they know more than I do. Whatever. But
have more access
my
to
youngest
information.
my youngest tells me he knows, but he doesn't know. But I want him to have that veil of innocence and that joy of looking up to someone and being like, they're amazing, and not have it sapped.
Yeah, and they're looking at them mainly for the right reasons. I think there are some behavioral characteristics that our kids, I know there are, that they pick up on.
Yeah. And that's when you have to step in.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about love watching him play basketball. Ja Morant, you know, had gun issues, right? So why are you out there on the court firing guns?
Ooh, yeah,
throwing grenades? Like, that's not something I want. The kid did it the other day. I was like, dude, do you know what you're doing? I saw it here. I'm like, we're not firing pistols.
Yeah.
Right? First off, I don't need you to do anything. Right?
No.
The right way to do something is nothing. Right? I don't need you to be flashy. I don't need you to celebrate.
Barry Sanders.
You want to sell? Yeah. Pick the ball up. Act like you've been there before.
Pick the ball up, hand it to the ref, say thank you, and run back to the hole or sideline.
But I also wonder too.
Act like you've been there before. I love that.
It's such a good.
I love that.
The older I get, the more that my parents and older generations tried to instill in us that I bucked at. The more I realize it's like it is timeless, and it should always. The kind of the John Wooden mentality, the Nick Saban mentality. I know I'm a Bama homer, but outside of that, the guy had a process. He had accountability, a way to do things. And if you started believing in yourself above the team, you lose.
No, sir.
You never will do anything. Agreed. Nothing works without that.
I agreed. But I do love that saying, act like you've been here before.
Act like you've been there before. Even if you hadn't. If you
have to do that much celebrating, that means it doesn't happen that often.
And if you need to, because you do need to honor and you need to celebrate, let's go celebrate that when not everybody's looking.
Yeah.
And that's a different thing. So it's a really different time right now, right? We don't want our kids to mature too fast, but we also don't want them to be naive and go through life.
Right.
Get taken advantage of.
Or just, modeling the behaviors of someone that they shouldn't.
So you mentioned something a little bit earlier, which is kind of the shift here, is there is opportunity even when our kids choose what we would probably say not the ideal role model, right? We've mentioned a few. Life happens. We're human. We all go through stuff. It's that opportunity to really say, hey, in whatever way we'll say it's age appropriate to explain these things. The human piece of this
have to explain the
critical.
Human thing. And, somebody somewhere is doing a podcast about all the things I've jacked up in my life, I'm sure.
You need to subscribe to it.
But, no, 100%. That also gives them, when things don't go their way, they make a mistake, they can model that behavior, and the comeback story is how you come back from things is really and truly a good lesson in itself. But eventually you have to get to that. And if you see like a Tom Brady or whoever that struggles or does something and they come back from it and they stand back up, I mean, what better lesson is that?
Do you think if your parents would have been authentic to you and forthcoming about the issues that they were going through at that time, and they may have, I don't know.
They weren't, but
most aren't. Why would you, right? Yeah. Because it's the same conversation we have right now. Same conversation
we're having, yeah.
Do you think that would change your opinion on them?
I don't think so. I think I was pretty, and even now, I'm pretty thrilled to go blindly through that and never know whatever their issues were. Because it didn't shape me. I was unaffected. You know what I mean? Whereas other people, maybe the opposite, like because there was a lack of information or a lack of explanation, that shaped them. So I think it depends on the person. I think, again, people react to different things in different ways. Somebody's top tier post-traumatic stress is somebody else's Tuesday. So,
It is. I don't know how to answer that question myself, because it's really, you can't answer that question as a 13-year-old kid, 15-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid, because at that point you're totally reliant on a provider, which are your parents, and hopefully they are providing, right? I know there's a lot of people out there that don't have that, but if they are providing, and you get through things, it's like, it's probably at that moment, it's probably better that I didn't know what was going on. But for the ones that kind of had their ideas about what was going on and knew that there were struggles going on, I think and we're getting a lot deeper.
Right.
Those kids may take that on themselves and say,
And then resent not being involved or not being able to,
or they take the blame and feel
Right.
like it's about them. And that's really difficult, and there's no good answer for that, and just kind of throwing it out there. The other thing too is this hard reality as adults that we get into. It's that you've had this viewpoint your whole life about who these people were, and at least who they were to you, and then you finally understand everything that they were going through, and even you understand that they're human. It's this almost depressive period that you go through, that your innocence in that moment, even as an adult, is taken from you, because you realize that, was he really this way, or was she really this way because they were this, or did we always have to do this because Aunt so and so was doing this? And that's the hard kind of crushing reality that everybody goes through, that you realize that the people that you've looked up to, everybody's got cracks in the armor.
Yep.
Just like our kids are going to figure out that we've got major cracks in the armor.
I've got flaws.
And I guess that maybe that's more of that transparency that I'm getting at. It's like, I don't want to reveal too much to my kids too early, but I want to have a conversation one day where it's, hey man, during this age, you probably saw this, and here's what was really going on, because you're not too far removed where that could happen in your life.
Exactly.
And I need you to know what I did wrong, but I also need you to know what I did right. So let's share some things.
But it also puts you in granted, you had kryptonite around you, Superman. It lets him know you're not invulnerable, but you also know how to come back from things, and you also are strong enough to be vulnerable. And I think that's fairly important. You're strong enough to have feelings and try to do good in life. So that model is very important.
There's a time and place for the mask.
Yes.
But the mask has to come off at some point.
At some point in time, you're not
if you wear that mask as a parental figure or a role model figure throughout the entire life, even when people can see beyond the cracks, you are fooling yourself, right?
You're the only one
you're the only one you're fooling. And then you'll lose a lot of respect.
Yeah.
And I there's just something about authenticity and vulnerability.
There is. And there's third and fourth order effects of that.
And the timing is critical, because you do it too early, kids lose respect for you.
Yep.
You do it too late,
you look like a fool.
you look like a fool. It's like, well, Dad, we've always known this.
This is not news.
Yeah. We have known this for years, and we were just waiting for you to fess up to it.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, we'll talk about a kick in the pan. And and dads of all ages. I mean, you guys know what we're talking about. So we'll take a break. We'll do the halftime spill. But when we come back, we'll talk about our playbook as dads on how do we help our kids choose the role models and spot the difference between a good and bad example. And we'll even give our perspective on when's the right time to step in. So take a break, then we'll be back. All right, so we're back in Q3. So now we're going to give you the Fit Fat Dad's Guide to seeing the good, learning from the bad, and raising real role models. So we've got some points that we're going to talk through on what we think that are probably ideal characteristics and things that our kids should be looking for in role models, and how to help guide. And I'll kick us off with number one. There's no true greater role model in the house with a dad, a father, real father figure, than the actual modeled behavior that you
the mimicked
put out there. Because your kids are going to mimic you, regardless of whatever you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. Like the good, the bad, and the ugly, they're going to do it all.
And mimic and just to make fun of you.
I mean, it's the dad things. Dads are ripping gas left and right through the house, right?
Yep.
And we do it in inappropriate things, upset our wives with it.
Yeah.
We think it's funny. Our kids are also going to do that. When it gets a little challenging is when they do that at school. And
Yeah, I got a couple stories that my son would not want me to tell. None of my children would, actually. So I will keep those to myself for you.
but just know that we got them, and
Well,
we can weaponize those pretty quickly.
we'll wait till Thanksgiving.
That's a good Thanksgiving special edition episode. But they learn more than just what we're doing physically.
Right, or what we say.
That's a huge, how we talk to our spouses, the things that we say,
Mm-hmm.
how we honor them. And I'm not saying I'm the example, but I'm saying they're watching.
Mm-hmm.
And how we treat our wives.
It's probably how they're going to treat theirs.
And you can do it in one or two ways. You can do it really bad, and they can do the way that I'm going to do it is do the opposite.
Right.
Congratulations, you've raised a really,
You raised,
really expert.
you inadvertently raised a great husband for someone.
It is. But
They do, because kids recognize it.
They do.
I think my 19-year-olds probably recognize a lot more about me now than they did at the time. We were going through that. So now I think they're like, maybe Dad.
And there's times as dads where you just got to play the role of whatever's happening. The kids are just going to have to know that, like, I know that they're going to see me as the bad guy.
Yep.
I hope there comes a time later in life when we can sit down and talk and know that I wasn't the bad guy.
Right.
Right. That's
I got that a couple times, so I'm pretty thrilled with that.
But I know it's
But you miss those so much in between.
You do. And that's a tough.
I've recently had some pretty good conversations with them, though, to where I broke down, and I think this might be the first time they saw me cry, and really told them how much I loved them and how much I missed out on everything and how guilty I felt because of it.
That's a good moment.
Yeah. I hope it was. It was good for me. That wasn't on the script, but we...
Just going to let the moment roast.
It's free fun. It's free form.
Going to marinate.
It's free form.
Going to marinate in there. What are you talking about? There's no script involved in this. So we talked modeling. What do you think are some other things?
Kind of like I coach a tackling drill.
Here we go.
Especially with younger kids. Once they get older, I can just destroy them, and I don't care. But with certain kids, I point out something they did well. And I'm like, that time, you didn't trip over your feet. Here's what I would need you to work on. So, pointing out the good. So, like, that guy set up a youth group organization where he goes around and collects bikes from different companies and gives them to poor kids in the area. However, since we're breaking this, he did this, and this. So human intends to do good things. Sometimes things just happen. Sometimes we make poor decisions in life, and these are the consequences. So I think really and truly leading with, here's the good, here's what didn't turn out so well, it gives a good balance to that they can apply. They can see themselves in that situation, or they can see what is going on and apply it to their life or their problem or whatever, because they can go, oh, well, this guy had this going on and he had this, but still came back. Does that make sense at all? Or
You're using the bad as a teaching moment.
Exactly.
And that's exactly right.
While still focusing on that it's still a good person. Just
and you don't know, because kids have access to so much information these days that you don't know whether they're telling you the truth on what they know about who they're looking up to. So it's a trust thing, but it's also, you got to be
what are they not telling us?
What are they not telling us a parent? But I'll ask them, I'm like, what makes you really, really want to wear this guy's jersey? Right? Explain to me everything.
Mm-hmm.
And usually what they're saying, there's nothing that comes out negative. And I really try to deep dive my kids a little bit. Like, show me the YouTube videos that you're watching that got you to this point.
Right.
That's because if they know that there's something fishy out there, they're not going to tell you. But
Exactly.
I'm like, take me to the source.
Because we know we'll take it away.
Oh, and if they won't take you to the source,
Got to do the dig.
At least my kids haven't gotten adept enough to understand the search history that you can clearly go back and.
Let's don't give away that.
Well, I'll delete that out. But no, come on, man. Like even still, like that's time consuming for them.
Right.
But
yeah.
that to me, that's and there might you can say whatever as long as they're under my house, I have that authority to do that.
You do.
And that is a protective measure to see that they're not going off the rails. And I will look at that from time to time because I don't know. It's not that I don't trust them. I don't trust the algorithm that is going to lead them down to a path. And so far, I'm content with what they do a really good job of policing themselves on that. And that to me is like, I'm really satisfied that if they see something going down a wrong direction, they quickly know how to police themselves, at least in front of me. Now, we can all laugh at me later as the dunce, but
no, I see it because the same thing happens in my house. I don't allow headphones when he plays video games so I can hear what he's saying and what people are saying to him. And he knows if I hear certain words or if I hear certain things, it's like, and it doesn't matter what's going on. It doesn't matter if he's winning the game. He's got to exit. Absolutely.
It's a boundary.
It is. Same thing with watching videos. Like he'll be scrolling. I swear he watches the same video over and over, but he'll hit one and it'll have a not good word in it or not good subject in it. And the first thing he does is, did he see? Did he hear? Did he hear? And I don't move. I just go, I heard it.
That's so true. And my kids, they'll get in front of it. They're smart enough to be like, because I'm like you. I'll play that I didn't hear.
Yeah.
And I'll let it play out to see when they're going to own up and be like, okay, right. So because they understand it's a privilege, but we're kind of getting off track here. But the whole thing is allow them to see the good.
Exactly.
It's kind of step one, and then two is let's reemphasize at an appropriate time. They're human. And they're going to make human mistakes.
And have a good conversation.
Because I think the worst thing that we can do is if you don't acknowledge the human element of this and you judge them.
Exactly.
Now you're going down a whole other path of judgment. And I do not want my kids to be. I want my kids, if somebody's struggling with something, to be the one that goes up to them and be like, man, I really hate this for you. How can I help you get out of here? Like, show some love.
In the same way, you and I want our children when they get older to not be like, oh, I hope my dad doesn't find out, instead of, I better call my dad. He'll know what to do.
Yeah.
Which is what we want.
Yes.
So you want that mentality, and I agree with you, but that's that conversation you have to have, and a lot of it is asking questions. A lot of it is just asking questions and listening and letting them go.
Which that's the point that you brought up without us even naming. That's the conversation, which is another key, is how are you getting those questions out? How are you sitting there and talking to them to understand why they are admiring said individual, but also understanding when, having the awareness to understand when the wool's being pulled over your eyes and the accountability factor, but allowing them to come forth. And like, that's a huge growth.
Tell me why. Talk to me about it.
And that brings us to the other point, is it's all leading to discernment, which if my kid even knew what that word meant, that would be a huge win.
Good news is I looked it up before we started recording.
But discernment is such a huge key here, because discernment is going to give you the ability, now that everything's laid out in front of us, I myself know what I'm going to lean into as the example versus what I need to stay away from. And it allows you to kind of pick up at a place where you want to idolize is not a good word, but role model,
look up to,
but also understands that there's boundaries that I'm going to set forth that I'm not going to go. And when people can just pull, like, have you ever seen these memes these days where it's like, the NFL's perfect quarterback, and you may have like Josh Allen's legs and Peyton Manning's arm, and in the opposite, they'll give you the worst, but they like piecemeal
the best
all the best attributes of something, and they'll do it for the worst too. But if my kids can get in a way where they can piecemeal all the best everything and just kind of combined, then I'm completely okay with them wearing a Tyreek Hill jersey.
Exactly.
Or I'm completely okay with them wearing, anybody else that has that, because nobody's free from these things. But
You can learn from anyone.
yeah,
You can learn how to act and how to be, or you can learn how not to act, and
yeah.
you
Now,
can learn.
I go back to my point originally. If somebody is continually being just a turd and doing things, then that's I'm a hard no on this person
But
as a role
that's
model.
but that's when we roll into that intervention piece.
Right.
And that's when we know, okay, enough. Behavior, how he speaks to people, how he carries himself or herself. It just knowing when to go, nope, we're done. Let's have it. But at the same time, it can't be a forceful, nope, you're not looking up to this guy anymore, because that's not how it works at all. If anybody with children know, it's just like, don't do that. They're going to do that.
It's gonna go.
So not threefold. It's happening. Spike kids.
Yeah.
I've got one.
And that's the intervention piece, which is another key element. That's the point when it's almost like there's too much heat surrounding this person, that there's more trouble coming out of this than it's worth even this, like our kid, even diverting attention to, because there's just not enough good that's going to come from this.
Yeah.
Like this one thing, guy could do one thing good and 50 things bad. Like the bad, it's almost like that whole saying.
It's a tidal
like
wave.
who you surround yourself with, like you are the sum of your top 5 friends. It's that kind of principle. Like
It is.
that stuff's going to get through no matter how much. And you just got to,
And it's going to influence.
It absolutely is. And all you got to do is go to a youth sports and see the kids talk trash and do the things that they
drives me
see
insane.
their role models do. Throwing a ball at kids, waving it, slitting throats.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Drives
nothing
me
gets
insane.
me fired up more. And what's even like,
But
I've
but
seen
there's
kids
but there's parents that encourage it.
that encourage it, and they do the same thing. I've had 7-year-olds, and you have too, come up to us as head coaches and do the slit throat to me. And it takes everything I could to be like, oh, like I know you're 7, but also know that I could throw you across the field if you want to slit throat to me.
Good news is I always react very calmly when coaching.
Facts. Well, there's a whole nother episode that we'll get into with that. It's already out there. But
Again, knowing when to step in.
no one would step in. The intervention's key, which brings us to our last point, which is the encouragement piece. And more of this is, it's how do you transition the things that our children are looking up to and kind of what I will call the mythology pie in the sky celebrity hero, and
Right.
kind of bring that home into everyday people that they're going to come in contact with. Like, hey, I understand that you like, Pat Mahomes over here, and here's a good thing Pat Mahomes does outside of just being an athlete, but your teacher does these same things.
Same things.
Right? Or your coach does these same things, or your teammate does these same things. So it's really bringing them into like a real life. These qualities
Exist
you
all
don't have
around
to be
us. Yeah, you don't.
superhuman celebrity pro athlete.
You don't have to have an NIL deal.
Right. You don't have to be making $800,000 a mil, or these days now it's like 8 mil.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Get in your bag.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that.
No. You can have good qualities just being a regular person.
Yeah. And you can be a complete turd and have all the money in the world.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what
You can be broke and be a
you can be
complete turd.
you can be rich and lonely.
Yep.
Right? And you can be broke and have all the friends in the world. I'm going to go over relationships any day.
I would too, but pointing those things out in their regular daily life, it does take the luster off of the sports athletes, the actors. Not so many actors these days. Like when we were growing up, it was a little more Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Jean-Claude Van Damme. Like those are like, oh. But not so much these days.
You know where we went wrong? We got away from the 80s training montage.
Yes. I love that we didn't speak about that. That would happen organically. That was phenomenal.
The world would be better if we just had the 80s montage.
a good kick to a bamboo tree or
It was some good 80s music.
Yeah, running up a mountain.
With a power pole on your back in the
yeah.
snow. That's what made us tough. We're so wrong here on everything that we said today. If we just had an 80s training montage.
80s training montage video.
Solved all issues.
Take note, Hollywood. Disney.
You can tell who our role models were. We turned out okay. All right, so we'll go to Q4 and we'll wrap it up here. So really, if you caught the drift, we kind of took the long way around to talk about, but there's no such thing as a perfect hero. On screen, in real life, we all have flaws. But I think as dads, the example that we set, one, visually, who our kids are watching, but also how we help them navigate through this arena of how they choose their role models. That's the most important thing that we can do. And how we help guide them. I mean, we talked about the human element, probably arguably the most important piece in all of this. And
but the encouragement of it, too, as well as intervention is a pretty big key of stepping in when it's time.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as we talk about on every episode, I feel like we always have to have the answers.
I know, and we never have the answers.
And that's part of the cracking the armor surprise, kids.
Wait till you're there. Turns out you didn't come with a manual that says turn to page 7. This is how you deal with this.
Here it is. But it's the honesty in that.
There is.
The authenticity that I don't have the answers. I can't tell you why so-and-so role model chose to do these things. I can't tell you why Henry Ruggs decided to drive home after Topgolf after a couple of bad decisions and do what he did.
Yeah.
He's paying for it.
Yeah.
And I hope he comes out better and learns and can overcome it. But those are the types of things that the reality of life is people make really bad decisions that have really bad life-altering consequences.
But at the same time, there's great people out there that do great things.
Yeah. But everything has a learning moment and a coaching moment. And I think that's the main thing here as dads.
Yeah, that's the main thing.
Coaching moment. Take everything as a coaching moment. Hopefully something gets through.
It's coming up on football season. I can tell we're starting to drift right back to coaching again.
Dun-dun-dun. Dun-dun-dun. So, guys, that's pretty much it.
We had one more thing.
We did have one more thing. All right, so we'll close here. And I hate to do it at the end. Hopefully you made it to the end. But we'll say this. We do get your text messages from our audio podcast.
Yes.
Ironically, we do not have a way to get back in touch with you. So we're gonna work with that provider to get that. But we have received your text messages saying that you guys are going through things and you appreciate the podcast. So one, we thank you for being a listener. Two, really hate that you're going through those things. And if there's anything that we can do to ever help, let us know. But the best way to reach us is to send us a DM on Instagram at FitFatDadPod. But just know, if you've sent us a message, we've read it, we've talked about it, we've even drafted up a response. There's no way to get back in touch with you.
Not been able to send it.
So know that we listen, know that we care. There are better ways to reach out where we can reply. So please reach us on IG. That's probably going to be the best way. That is the best way to reach us. And hey, continue to send those messages. We really do. Whether we can help or not, we're here to listen.
We'll jump in the nick of time.
We may not have great advice, but we'll be with you in this path and journey. And sometimes that's really all you need. Just know that somebody
else is with you doing the same thing.
Yeah. So keep reaching out. We really appreciate it. We have actually heard from several, and I'm assuming dads, right? May not be dads, but there's a lot of
bro. Could be a bro.
As it turns out, there's a lot of people in this space.
Yeah.
And we're all going through the same thing, and we don't have the answers, but we
can chat about it.
It's a little garage talk.
It's
right.
It's a lot easier in life when you know you're not the only one going through the stuff.
And that's okay. We'll turn on Creed. We'll turn on some Nickelback.
Oh, I'm so thrilled.
We'll turn on which is now a whole genre now. Have you realized that?
Yes, I know.
They call it's dad rock, but it's really they call it divorced dad rock, which I'm not celebrating.
Did you hear about what they actually call it? And there's a couple of playlists on Spotify.
What is it actually called?
It's called butt rock.
What's it called?
Butt rock.
I need the meaning behind that.
Okay. So I'd had to do some research because
I don't like where this is going.
I was offended immediately by a couple of my coworkers. I'm not going to say their names, Kyle and Justin, but
I love how you always reveal.
I know. But what I'll say is, back in the 80s and 90s, when it was radio stations, before there was actual, podcast and Spotify and everything, Apple Music, DJs would go, and here we are on 96.6 Rock, where we play nothing but rock. That's where it came from. Did you like my voice?
Nothing but rock. What better way to close on nothing but rock? Well, you learned something today. We'll include that. So, again, appreciate you guys all taking the time to listen. Hope you learned something. Shoot us a message, IM, DM, whatever. IM, that's old school. That's AOL.
That's
But we've enjoyed it. We're out.
Have
Peace.
a good one.